you saw in the paper today that Cummins Engine is looking to invest $452 million in Chautauqua County. Wow. Now, I know there's some criticism of the IDA, and we'll move on to talk about it. I think I understand why there is, but the IDA was helping, I should say instrumental, but the IDA has been a pivotal role in many of these businesses staying. But having said that, they're investing, this one business is going to nearly match all of last year's investment in Chautauqua County industry. That's one investment. We had over $501 million last year. This year, this program right now is this proposal is 452, and they look to expand and talk more about this. The sad part about it was there was very little information. I won't go here or there, but the sad part is front page above the fold, and not one quote came from a local person. They didn't call Senator Brello, Assemblyman Goodell, myself. They didn't call the plant manager at Cummins. They talked to a Cummins official, and I'm not even sure who that was. I do understand John Whitaker, and they're trying to get the story out, but reach out to the people. I'm a product of Cummins Engine. My dad came here in 1977. That's what brought us here from Maryland. So I have a fondness in my heart, and I know Sean worked there for many, many years, retired with a great career. I worked there myself. I realized industrial work was not for me. Back then, in 1993, Cummins was producing about 215 engines a day. They're upwards over 400 and looking to increase that output. 3 out of every 4 tractor trailers you see on the road has a Cummins engine. That's pretty damn impressive because those engines, the majority of them are built right here. And Sean, correct me, most of them right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
15 liter,
right.
12 liter, 12 liter.
In the Jamestown engine plant. So they are committing to investing in the future, investing in Chautauqua County. So that's really big. I'm uniquely qualified. I am the only county executive ever to be dismissed from the governor's mansion. Reason being is we went there and she wanted to talk about post-COVID or something along those lines. We had to have masks. I had 2 on. I don't know why I had 2 that day, but I had 2 on. And I tested positive. So, I'm like, my friend's like, come on, get in. I'm like, I guess I tested positive. I felt great. Was not sick. They tested me 3 times on site. The 4th time, they swabbed it, gave it to the trooper. The trooper drove out, took it to the Wadsworth lab and tested it. And within a half an hour, they told me it was indeed positive. So I walked up, and in somewhat of a sarcastic manner, the governor, her aide said, the governor wants to speak with you on the front porch. So I did, and I walked out. And I said, she goes, I'm so sorry. And I said, Governor, I understand. I said, I feel like the kid who came to school, pardon me, with lice. I'm like embarrassed more than anything else. And I said, but wait, why can't I just stay if I keep my mask on? Well, I said, I've got 2 even. I've got a KN95, and then I have a kind of a cloth mask. And she goes, well, I said, I understand. So I left. Whatever. To me, it is what it is. I walked out and, again, uniquely enough, had that dubious distinction. But Steve Aquario, the executive director of NYSAC, New York State Association of Counties, talked to her afterwards, and she said, she's like, that was probably the worst person I needed to have COVID, test positive for COVID and not stay. And Steve goes, yeah, you're right. I oppose the governor on a lot of things. Does she, and I'll tell you this, and I'm not defending our governor, but one-on-one, she could have a sensible conversation. Put her in front of a camera, forget it. One of the things you'll notice, and there's a lot of things that are in her budget, and unfortunately, we heard last week from our executive director, NYSAC, that the financial components of her budget are pretty much done. What's hanging up? Policy. So, real quick, I've got these Cliff Clavin moments. How many counties are in New York State? Does anybody know?
66.
62. How many county executives are there in New York State?
Should be 62.
18. 18 and 1, the most famous county executive in the world, and that's the mayor of New York City. So there are 3 forms of government. You will hear me say this, and I'm not saying it here in a soapbox. I'm not up for re-election this year. But New York is consistently inconsistent. There are 3 forms of government. So in Chautauqua County, we have a charter system of government whereby you have an elective chief executive officer. That's our county executive. To the east of us is Cattaraugus County. They have a legislature. Those are elected men and women that represent drawn districts in following the New York State laws and the census, etc. Then you have in other counties, I think Wyoming is one of them. I'm not sure how many there are. Then they have a board of supervisors, which is what Chautauqua County was prior to, I think, 1974 or 75, when Joe Gerasi was selected as the first county executive. We had a board of supervisors, 27 towns, 13 villages, and 2 cities. Those are these little anomalies you learn as county executive. But 27 men and women, really back then it was 27 men, converged to do the county business every month. Since that time, obviously, our county legislature has reduced. So there are 19 of us, and for the first time in a long time, the mayor of New York City is in concert with the remaining county executives. It holds, I want to say it's 11 to 7, but I could be wrong. It may be 10 to 8. I'm not sure, but there is a Republican majority in the county executive ranks. The Republicans have taken Nassau County, which is huge. That's the largest county outside of New York City. And some things we're concerned about. But right now in her policy, what she wants to do, the federal government has something you've heard of called FMAP, Federal Medicaid Assistance Percentages. That is federal dollars intended to go directly to the counties as a pass-through through New York. The governor wants to intercept that. That's her term. I call it the playground bully. I can take it because I can. We're fighting this. We felt we had a good case and support in what they call the one-house budgets. It was taken out of both. I was told yesterday by Steve Aquario, the executive director of NYSAC, we may be losing that battle. But we will fight. The county executives united along with the mayor of the city of New York. That's $1 billion. It's not going to programming. It's not going to anything other than the fund balance. So she's going to take money from Chautauqua County. This year, it'd be $4 million. And we would have to then budget this for the next however many years, as long as she wants to keep taking it. What she doesn't tell anybody is that she owes us $8 million already. So if this were to take place, according to the rules, if the budget gets passed by Saturday, which I don't think is going to happen, the county would she would take $4 million from us, and then she wouldn't pay us the other $8. I will tell you some of the information. It's not looking good. We tried working to get the money paid back. Right? If you listen to what the county state of the county, we're putting $19 million into our fund balance. I'll explain that in just a second. But that means $4 million is going to go right out the door and cover what we already budgeted for. She's taking this because she can. So we're asking the federal government. I know Nick Langworthy's standing behind us 100%. Mark Molinaro. I'm really good with names, and all of a sudden everything is. Elise Stefanik. Many of the Republican congressional delegation are opposing this vehemently. So we're keeping to push that. The other thing she wants to do is really attack home rule. So in the town, I could say this, in the town of Bustye, they wanted a development. Somebody wanted to develop the former Sunset Valley Golf Course. When they pitched the presentation, it sounded good, but then as it got into it, they started talking more and more about subsidized housing. And the town board felt that wasn't the way they wanted to go, and I don't know if they voted on it or whatever, the project got dropped. Well, if the board, let's say the board were to vote on this, and the board denies it, that developer could then go to the state committee of review, and that state committee that the governor will form can then override home rule, and you'll hear me talk about this in a second. She'll override home rule and tell them that you have to allow that development to take place. God. Again, something slipped into the budget that people don't know about. This is why, pardon me, I respect them immensely. I've known them as George and Andy, so Senator Borrello and Andy Goodell, work with them hand in hand with everything we do. But George and Andy fight this all the time. The next thing she wants to do, part of this contribution to fund balance, one of the components was a large for once, a large tax foreclosure auction. Now, uniquely enough, what she wants to take away is I think it's Article 11 in the foreclosure law. So many times, people owe us taxes, and the county makes all the towns and villages whole. So the town of Busti is owed $10,000 on delinquent taxes. The county pays the town of Busti that $10,000. We make them whole. Then, if the property is foreclosed, the county gets the benefit of that sale. Most times, we get taken to the cleaners. They owe $5,000 in taxes. We could sell it for $500, or maybe $1,000. But there's the majority of times there's a loss. This year, we were very fortunate. I don't know the exact numbers, but to make it simple, let's say somebody owed $50,000 in back taxes on a piece of commercial property. This year, it sold for $350,000. So the county got a profit of $300,000. The governor now wants to say, no, any profit goes back to the homeowner.
Oh,
Wait a minute. You haven't paid taxes in 3 years, so it's not one and done. It's not if you miss your taxes, you're automatically going to foreclosure. No, it's 3 years. And for some of these people coming in, it was 5 years. They didn't pay their mortgage. Now, we do have a way for those people to reclaim their houses before they go to the auction. But the governor wants to take that away and say, no, give that back to the homeowner. And like all the executives have said, then sell the house. Why should you take that from the counties because the person can't pay their taxes? So these are some of the things the governor's just slipping into that budget as what they call policy. That's where the big problem arises. I think Mark mentioned, talk to your senator. I can tell you our senator will not vote for 9 people in the Supreme Justice. It was very interesting. You saw my picture there. Okay, obviously we have to, ask for funding. We're looking for funding for Chautauqua Lake, Lake Erie, and also a shovel-ready site in western Chautauqua County. So we're asking for federal dollars. I can guarantee you Charles Emerson Schumer will not. He will vote to try to stack that court. There's no two ways about it. So I support what Mark said. Talk to your senator, but in New York, you might as well talk to that wall and expect a better answer. It was same with he and Senator Gillibrand. So with that said, we'll go on a little bit. So I talked a little bit earlier. I know taxes are something you're all very familiar with and very concerned about. When we say that we have, now there's a $19.4 million contribution to the fund balance. The actual number is over 21 million, I think 21.5. In the budget for debt service, not using it to balance the budget, but to pay off the Starflight helicopters that we had many years ago. That's what we're using to pay down that debt. But that does not mean that you were overtaxed. Okay, so please understand that. And actually, if that were the case, pardon me, we must be doing one heck of a job because we've lowered taxes 71 cents in the last 2 years, and we still made that kind of contribution to fund balance. The significant numbers were we had a tribal compact, so we do have an agreement with the Seneca Nation and the federal government on collection of funds from the Seneca Nation for their casinos. For 3 years, we did not get that funding. We finally got it settled this past year. We also had a very large, successful sale of our tax foreclosure auction. We've also had very significant sales tax revenues. So that's what we have used, and a couple of other one-offs, but really holding everybody to their budget. Making sure that people hold the line, no frivolous spending, and really watching what we're doing as we go forward. Those are some of the things I remain committed to. So, if I were on the stump right now, the last 3 years, the county executive's budget proposed a tax rate reduction. My first year, I put a rate reduction in, the paper slammed me. Oh, you should listen to Chuck Nazaro. And Chuck is a very smart man, a chief financial officer. I have a lot of respect for him in financing. But they said, listen to Chuck Nazaro. All of a sudden, at the end of the year, we had a significantly larger contribution based on our sales tax revenue. Why? Because there is sales tax collected on your internet sales, which hadn't been done before. I felt confident. We could use the tax relief. They said no. And again, so for the last 3 consecutive years, we have had significant contributions to the fund balance, which means we did much better than we had budgeted. Hats off to every one of our county departments. Hats off to our finance and budget director. This is some of the things that we've done. for you as residents in Chautauqua County. Right now, Kitty Crow is our financial director. She is involved in something called CashFest. And that is, so there's a company called 3+1, and they recommend ways for you to gain interest and make money on your cash while you're waiting to spend it. Okay? For the 4th year in a row, we have had the highest score in their corporation. Now, the reason I say that is because they put a bar of 95 as their highest score. We achieved 100 2 years in a row. They never expected that, ever. Joel Rolson loves, he's the owner of 3+1, loves when we walk into to an event because we are his golden child. This year we just got the score, we had a 99. Kitty's like, I don't know, they must have dinged us on something. But having said that, we also got involved in something called a municipal trust. I'm on the board of governors for NYMER, so this is the New York State Municipal Insurance Reciprocal. New York State started an insurance company for New York State municipalities. Significant because it was started as grassroots over 30 years ago. Very successful corporation. Some of the same people decided to do this municipal trust. That municipal trust is a way to gain money, to gain interest with larger pools of money. For example, some of the numbers I was given today, when Kitty invested with $121,000 in the second quarter last year, I forget what quarter it was, that portfolio is now worth over $500,000. She took $20,000, and it started, I think it climbed up to 60. Now that's worth $230,000. So right now, because of our investments and our fiscal strategies, we are gaining money. We have a $500,000 interest, if you will, to our ARPA funding, which means instead of 24.6, we're more like $25 million. That's because of our financial management strategies and our financial management plans. So please, understand that when you hear these numbers, the other side will say, well, you're taxing us too much. We're not taxing you too much. We are keeping those costs down and keeping everything low. We talked a little bit about, electric. I love this, and I brought this case up, across different areas and different talks with people. I love our governor will stand beside, and I'm not going to, I don't want to get anybody upset with this statement, but my body, my choice, right? That's their belief that they stand by. Yes, it is, County. It's my body, my choice. Well, what about the vaccination? It wasn't my body, my choice.
Exactly.
They want to hear that. My house, my choice. By 2025, they want to do away with natural gas appliances. Well, I've been public, and I'm not going to stand by, and I'm not saying this just because I'm here. I've told people, if my gas-powered stove goes down, I'm going to Pennsylvania, buying the stove, and bringing it back. Period. Makes no sense. And why is it that we have to force that upon people? Does anybody know where one of the first, if not the first, natural gas well was founded or discovered? Fredonia, New York. Yes, you said it. Natural gas, thank you, was founded in New York State, and our governor has the audacity to say we're doing away with it. Yeah. Millions upon millions of cubic feet, yards, pound, whatever it's measured, sitting underneath us in the Marcellus and Utica Shale, and she say, no, we can't do it. Mm-hmm. Now, is there climate change? Is there climate changing? Yeah, from a little kid, I could see maybe. And bear with me with this. I'm not about climate change, okay? We have seen significant. How many people have seen consistent snowstorms in March and April? We've seen that anomaly the last couple of years. But somebody said this yesterday to another point. You can't prove it's climate change. You cannot prove it's climate change. Right. Therefore, to me, it's a moot point. And I said to somebody that argued, he goes, well, I said, so you're telling me that we notice that the temperature is increasing. What about 300 years ago? What if we're in the same cycle we were 300 or 400 years ago?
Exactly.
Well, we didn't record temperatures. Well, there's models. He said in 1492 they thought the world was flat too, so I'm not really basing a lot on past science, right? So again, are things happening in a much more increasing level, severe storms? Yeah. But there's a lot of things that go into that as well. And it's not, I can't say it's because, and I tell this to all my kids, I just did a talk last week at Fredonia School. If you can tell me with a straight face, when you take a picture from the Industrial Revolution, and I'll use Pittsburgh, and I don't have any problems with Pittsburgh. I was born in Pennsylvania, love Pennsylvania. But if you look at Pittsburgh in the turn of the 20th century and look at Pittsburgh now, you're telling me we're polluting the world now? More now than we were back then? Ain't no way. Ain't no way we're doing that. And I'm sorry. Andy Goodell says it. I stand by it. And hats off to the Bemis Point School District because they have spoke out in opposition to electric buses. Yeah. They are the most expensive coal-fired buses in the world because that's where they're getting their power.
Right.
We'll explain a little bit more. So, I know that the solar and wind is a big issue, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The solar and wind is not going to support our energy needs. No, isn't going to happen. What's happening right now, I believe our governor has a belief if it's not in front of us, we don't see it, right? Sweep it under the carpet. So when you need power, instead of going to the city of Jamestown's BPU with a gas-powered turbine, we're stoking up the coal fires in Pennsylvania. That's okay because it's not New York. We don't mind. Makes no sense. Downstate, they took offline a nuclear plant. And guess what powers the city of New York, the Big Apple and all its electrical needs? Indian Point, a coal-fired power plant that's beyond outdated. Beyond outdated. Now, I've been a believer in listening to what people talk about micronuclear. When we talk about nuclear, if you can put a nuclear reactor in a battleship and send it to sea for 25 years, you're telling me we don't have the technology to put that in a small, bunkered facility in a city or town and create enough power to power that town or city.
It's coming.
It's coming. I don't disagree with that. To me, that's more practical than solar and wind. Now, the other side is, we'll get to some of the questions. But again, keep that in mind. The solar and wind will not support our energy needs. Now, this is another piece. I forget what acronym they used for that solar or that committee talking about, energy, whatever it is, CLPRA, whatever. Now it's the lake thing. Sorry. Anyway, I talked to Dave Leathers from the BPU. A 482-page document came out talking about the new energy use in New York State. One of the things that's in there is a waiver. And many people don't know about this waiver. The waiver states, well, if you don't sign the waiver, in the event of a high energy need, the government can close down the energy to your home to supplement it for, and again, maybe a hospital or other industry, I don't know. Right. Or, as in illustrious Governor Cuomo, we want to power the city because they need it more than rural Chautauqua County. If you don't sign that waiver, they can shut it down. So when you go to bed at night, you want to charge, if this goes their way, you got to charge your car, you got to charge your second vehicle to get around, you got to charge all the buses. And all of a sudden, well, we need more energy because it's 90 degrees out or 95 degrees at night and we need an air conditioner. So we kick up the air conditioners and now they start to diminish your air conditioner. Or if we need to focus on a hospital, I understand that, pivoting that. So you may have the energy to your house decrease. So when you wake up in the morning, your car's at 75, or brownouts, but your car's at 75%. What if you don't get to work? What if you're planning a trip, you don't get there? That's right. The most ridiculous I've heard from the group, and I'm not sure NYSERDA, whoever does it, and NYSERDA has even questioned this totally green, total energy car deal. But they said, well, what about the schools? What if we have a power outage? Well, use your generator. The diesel generator. Okay. There you go. The diesel generator that I can't have in my bus, you want me to have in a bigger, more magnitude form and charge our buses. So that's what we're dealing with. This, and I said it yesterday, I heard it. Our governor has some significant issues. There are some significant concerns of what she wants to do. My biggest fear, and I tell people this, the people that have agendas coming into government are often short-lived. This idea, we're going to push everybody to green energy. It isn't going to happen. No. Do we look at progressing there? Certainly. Cummins engine, it's so unique. Cummins engine by 2050 is looking at zero emission. Not 2020, not 2025 or 2030, 2050. And there's 4 processes they're looking at: compressed natural gas, like a hybrid diesel, and they're also looking at hydrogen. Okay, so, but what happened? Oh, Cummins is going to produce electric. They got to equip it from the CEO's response or the CEO's speech at a board of directors meeting. they paraphrase what they wanted to put it front page above the fold. Cummins is going electric. Well, if you go to Cummins Engine right now, I don't see much electric in the form of engines in their factory. It's diesel powered, and honestly, you know, Sean could probably attest to it, and I'm not calling Sean out, but Sean worked there for many, many years. Compressed natural gas, they've had at Cummins for probably 30 years.
Various attempts.
But yeah, various attempts. So I really feel they're getting it right, and that's something I support. If we want to go to hybrid, I get that. Okay, if I'm cruising down the highway and I want to kick off my gas engine and keep me cruising along at, I go sometimes above the speed limit, 80. Then let my batteries kick in. You know, but to say we got to shut everything off and go to electric, it doesn't. I will give you proof. In fact, the Chautauqua County tried doing this. The airport manager has 2 electric vehicles. She said, PJ, I took an electric car to Rochester for a New York State Association, actually New York State Airport Managers Association meeting. It took me 6 hours. Now, most of us know that's a 2.5, maybe 3 if you drive slow. 6 hours because she could not get there on a full charge and had to stop somewhere. Now, a very affluent family that lives in the institution has battery-powered cars, electric cars. They can't take 86. There's very few charging stations. You're not going to make it. Okay? So again, you know, if people have the cars, you know, there are charging stations. So let's look at that down the road. But that should be an option. You know, we all say this, and you know, America's a land of opportunity and options, not being forced to do something. So, you know, back in the day, we all remember, I'm a movie quoter, and in Red Dawn, they said, you know, you can have my gun when you pry it from my cold, dead fingers. Well, you can have my gasoline-powered car when you pry it from my cold, dead hands. I will do what it takes to keep those gas-powered cars. And again, just, you know, they're sensible. You know, how about enticing and incentivizing engineers to come up with a better burning fuel or a fuel-efficient car instead of saying, oh, everything's going electric. That's the scary part about this president right now and his agenda, the governor and her agenda. We've also been, you know, one of the things that's happening, the governor's policymakers, they're not native New Yorkers. Many of them are coming from California. Very concerning for New York State. So we'll get into some of these questions.